Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for being with us today. The last year has seen an exponential increase in the frequency and sophistication of cyber attacks. In the last year alone, we've witnessed 440 million records leaked from Estée Lauder. More than 1 million Danish citizens had their information exposed when the Danish tax portal was breached. 5.2 million hotel guests had their information leaked when the Marriott hotel chain fell victim to a cyber attack. And of course, we're all familiar with the more recent stories regarding SolarWinds, Microsoft Exchange, and even the mighty Apple now claims themselves as a victim of ransomware. According to recent statistics, 30,000 websites are hacked every day, and 64% of companies have experienced at least one form of a cyber attack. Former FBI Director Robert Mueller once said, there are two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be. We hope to provide you today with information to ensure you do not become such a victim. To explore this subject, I'm thrilled to introduce Eitan Bremler, co-founder of SafeT. SafeT has one goal, to keep your organization safe from attacks and data leakage by securing your access. Their award-winning product Zone Zero is the quickest, easiest, and most flexible way to add zero trust network access to your environment. As a testament to its effectiveness, you need look no further than the recent endorsement by NASA, who approved Zone Zero for use, an achievement worthy of high praise indeed. Feel free to submit your questions to us through the questions panel. We will answer those at the end of the presentation. We will also be recording the session today, and that recording will be sent to your email address no later than tomorrow. With the housekeeping and introductions over, I now hand over to Eitan to begin the presentation. Thank you again for your time. Eitan.
Thank you, Andy. And hi, everyone. Eitan Bremler here, co-founder and VP Corporate Development here at SafeT. And like Andy said, the goal of this presentation is kind of give you a recap of how 2020 went in terms of attacks. We'll go through three sample attacks, kind of analyze them and show how we think we could have solved or at least helped with these attacks using our Zone Zero product, which we will present as well. So a bit about us before we start. Global company based out of Israel, publicly traded, both Tel Aviv and NASDAQ, with offices around the world, UK, Spain, Germany, Asia, India, US, with partners, as you can see here, also global, with the Inuit team being one of our partners, and a variety of partners around the world. Covered by all the leading analysts, whether it's Gartner and Forrester, for the zero trust or software-defined perimeter space, with a recent report just last month, which we were also referenced in it. So you can see that since the inception of the software-defined perimeter or zero trust network access space, we've consistently been referenced as a vendor, again, by Gartner, Forrester, and all the different analysts. We've basically been doing secure access since inception back in 2013. So we understand the market of access, specifically zero trust network access. A bit of our customers. So we operate not only global, but also wide in terms of verticals. You can see we have customers in the financial spaces, whether it's fintech like Lavego and Temenos, and banks like Consolidated Bank, or insurance companies. Could be large corporations in utilities, in manufacturing like Signify, government agencies and law enforcement like Israeli police and army, state government like the state of Indiana in the US, healthcare, education like the Weizmann Institute, and universities here in Israel, and fintech, medtech companies in the US, as well as cloud providers who are both our customers and partners like Accenture Global and Fujitsu Global. If we look at 2020, and all verticals were hit back in 2020. 2020 showed a very high rise in number of attacks. Every month, more and more attacks. Again, cross verticals, cross continents. Attacks came from both external parties as well as internal users. So external sources, internal sources, we saw all of them. One specific type of attack, hit a lot of news was the ransomware attack that grew a lot. We feel a lot of it because of COVID, because of many more remote users. We're not necessarily experienced in how to connect remotely, so they were very good targets for attackers. And the second type of attack, which got a lot of news and was relatively new in 2020, was VPN targeted attacks. Hackers actually targeting VPNs and through them jumping into the organization. Again, we feel one of the reasons for this was COVID. COVID, with the drive for a lot of remote work and work from home, caused a higher utilization of VPNs. The more VPNs connections, the more the profile of VPNs, the more they became a target. And you can see here, we outlined 4 types of attacks that we saw during 2020: ransomware attacks, data breaches, credential thefts, and VPN attacks. And if you look each month, there was at least one attack of these types. Could be ST Loud, like in February, like Andy mentioned, could be EasyJet or Pulse Secure and Fortinet, which were hacked, culminating with SolarWinds at the end of the year, which was maybe the largest attack to date in 2020. And this was eclipsed by the Microsoft Exchange hack just the beginning of the year. So, hackers are not stopping. Now, we will focus in this presentation on 3 attacks: a Pulse Secure related attack, University of San Francisco, and the SolarWinds hack. These are the 3 attacks we will analyze and discuss. So we'll start with the Shearbit insurance company hack, right? This attack came through, this is an Israeli insurance company using Pulse Secure. What the hackers did, they utilized a vulnerability in Shearbit's Pulse Secure VPN, which by now has been patched, and the insurance company also patched it, but at that point, earlier last year, that was still an open vulnerability. The hackers utilized that vulnerability to bypass authentication of the VPN and use the VPN as a jump point into the organization, basically gaining access into the company. From there, they started roaming around, locating file servers, stealing corporate information, and then threatened to release them if a ransom was not paid. So they did not encrypt the files, they stole them, asking for a ransom. This insurance company actually did not pay. They refused to pay ransom. That caused a lot of information to be leaked. Personal IDs, passports, medical information, quite high profile people in Israel, and very bad publicity to the insurance company. And also Pulse got a bit of heat because they were the hackable component. The second attack we're talking about is the UCSF, University of San Francisco ransomware attack. In this case, the attack started with a basic email campaign, phishing emails that was sent to users and employees in UCSF, executed once the file was open, and that executed the ransom. So pretty standard ransom attack. Encrypted files. The reason we looked at this is because there was quite a high profile here. This was actually a COVID-19 research facility. So there was a lot of COVID-related research information which was stolen and encrypted. In this case, the ransom was paid. And there was, again, bad press, brand hit, and leak of research. They got the files back, but they did lose over $1 million. The last attack is the SolarWinds hack. I don't think we need to tell anybody who what that attack was, but a bit of how it went. So basically, in this case, the hackers, and this was the first time, they actually utilized a backdoor in the SolarWinds Orion platform to inject their malicious code into the Orion platform. and waited for people to install the software or get an update. So instead of directly hacking an organization, they weaponized a third-party software. Okay, this means you can pretty much do this with everything. Okay, this is similar to what happened with the Microsoft Exchange. But in this case, SolarWinds, they knew after a lot of research that this is quite a widespread application. They hacked it, put in a vulnerability, and then hacked through the Orion into the organization, connecting to their CNC servers to get the information, and then start going throughout their victims and stealing information. There was a very bad brand hit for SolarWinds back then. It exposed over 18,000 clients, okay, on a wide range of verticals across the world, right? The estimate specifically for the US was over $100 billion damages for specifically government agencies in the US that were hit because of the SolarWinds. So this attack got a lot of press, right? Because it was really the first time an attacker utilized a third-party software to hack to it and use it as a jump point into the organization. So if we look at these three attacks, right, seemingly different attacks, we analyzed a VPN hack, a ransomware attack, and the SolarWinds hack, or the supply chain hack. But what do these attacks have in common, right? They all have some access stage, right? Could be an external user or an internal user. There is an access vector. I either access your VPN and hack it, I either access a third-party software and hack it, or access a user, and from the user, access corporate files. At the end of the day, there's an access vector. And as a zero trust access vector, and as a zero trust access vendor, this is exactly where we think we can help. By cutting that access vector, we can reduce the chances of an attack. And we offer to do this with our zero trust network access platform called Zone Zero. Zone Zero is a software-only solution. No hardware required, purely software designed to unify and control all access use cases into an organization. These could be external users, internal users. We control access based on zero trust concept for all of these users. We do this unification of use cases by combining four main technologies. Our reverse access packet, which is the way we transfer traffic in and out of the organization. Our software-defined perimeter, or SDP technologies for remote non-VPN users. Our ability to work with corporate VPNs to secure and control access for VPN users, and our collaboration and integration with MFA solutions to add another layer of authentication for any accessing user. By combining these technologies, we can now sit between any type user, could be a corporate employee in the office, a server in the network, a third-party vendor, a remote worker, contractor, supply chain, VPN users, work from home users from their home desktops, between any type of user, even an IoT device, and the corporate data. By sitting in between and controlling access and authentication, we can not only ensure users only access the resources allowed to them, but also prevent the access vector of attacks like we discussed before. So what we offer to our customers is a software-only solution, as I said, comprising of 3 virtual machines. The 2 mandatory virtual machines are the access controller and access gateway. The access control and the authentication gateway is an optional machine. We'll talk about it later on. The access controller is the brain of the solution. It is the main component. It is the component which has routing to all the backend applications we want to expose to the outside world or internal users. It also has connectivity to the organization identity provider or MFA providers, and it manages the gateways, the access gateway and the authentication gateway. Not only does it configure them, it also retrieves traffic for them. Our technology is outbound. Everything is access controller initiated. Any traffic sent by a user, either an authentication flow to the authentication gateway or an access flow to the access gateway, the controller goes out, picks it up, and passes it along. We'll see a slide about this later on. The client on the left could be a VPN client, a safety authentication portal client, or an internal user. It only knows the gateways. The controller is the one orchestrating all the traffic. Now, our outbound technology, where the access controller goes out to the access gateway to retrieve traffic, is our patented technology, our secret sauce. We work on a TCP level, so any TCP application will work. All the user has to do is open the relevant client application on their laptop, tablet, phone, desktop, whatever. Could be an RDP client, an SSH client, a mainframe application, a ERP FAT client or web browser, and point it to the access gateway, which is opened only for specific users after authentication. Traffic sent to the access gateway, the controller goes out, pulls it in, passing it to the business application. The firewall here is configured from the inside out. So the controller continuously polls and checks the access gateway. Once it senses there's a packet, it pulls it in, passes it to the relevant application, the response is sent back out. This way of outbound-based operation is, again, the basis of our technology. This is how we control traffic in and out of the network. Doing it by reducing the attack surface by closing the firewall ports. So even by deploying our solution, you even start with network protection. By reducing the attack surface, closing incoming firewall ports, will really hide applications on the back end. So now that we talked about kind of the secret sauce, let's dive into the 3 use cases of Zone Zero. And after that, we'll see how these use cases could have helped prevent an attack. So the first use case we'll talk about is Zone Zero SDP. This is our VPN replacement technology. It's, again, based on our patented technology. The idea is separating authentication from access. You need to authenticate first, access later, supporting all legacy protocols. So any corporate application you can think of, we can provide access to. It can work instead of your VPN or with your VPN. So if you're concerned your VPN is vulnerable or want to reduce users on your VPN, you can pass them on to Zone Zero SDP, which can sit in parallel to your VPN, and it is clientless, which means it's really good for your non-employees, your business partners, your contractors, users you might not want to give VPN clients to, people working from home. This is a good solution. As you can see here, it has a variety of deployments. The first one is an on-prem deployment. Everything deployed in your premise. Access controller, authentication gateway, and access gateway. The controller manages the gateways. The controller also connects to your identity provider. Could be on-prem Active Directory, or it could be cloud-based applications and services, and also to the backend applications. A user on the left wanting to connect to a backend application, all they need to do, and we'll see this later on in the demo, open a browser to the authentication gateway, put in the credentials, controller goes out, picks up the credentials and sends them to the relevant identity mechanism. For example, Active Directory. The AD will respond back to the controller. User is authenticated, and this is the group the user belongs to because we are identity based. At that point, the controller will send a command to the access gateway, please open up access to relevant applications. Now all the user needs to do, open the relevant client application. I'm connecting to an RDP. I need to open my RDP client, point it to the access gateway. The controller will go out, pick it up, and send it to the relevant RDP machine. This clientless access allows you, again, any user on the left, could be a remote worker, on the mobile phone, tablet, PC, third-party contractors, all of these users can now very easily access corporate applications. This, again, can be a VPN replacement. This can replace your VPN if you're concerned about the VPN being non-secure or in terms of performance, or wanting to remove some users, move them off your VPN. This solution can run also hybrid, where you put some the controller on-prem, the gateways in Safety Cloud or in your own cloud like AWS or Azure, or you can consume it also through our MSSPs. We have a variety of MSSPs like Accenture, Fujitsu, where you can consume that service from them, where the controller runs in your premise, the gateways in their cloud. So this is the first product or use case. The second use case is what we call Zone Zero VPN. The idea here is not to replace your VPN, but rather sit after the VPN as a second line of defense. This solution could have prevented the Pulse Secure VPN hack. Why? Because the way our solution works is as follows. The user starts by authenticating to the VPN. If it's a Pulse Secure VPN, I open my Pulse Secure client and authenticate to the VPN authenticates me. But instead of then routing the user into the network, the VPN routes the traffic to Zone Zero and updates us that the new user has been connected. At that point, Zone Zero sends an MFA to the user. The idea here is to prevent attacks on the VPN. Many of the VPN vulnerabilities allow bypassing the first factor of authentication or the second factor of authentication. By placing us after the VPN as a second line of defense, we prevent that vector from being utilized. Even if the user bypasses the first factor of MFA, they will be blocked by us because we will be the one reissuing the MFA to the user. In addition, you can offload the MFA to us in order to gain benefit from advanced MFA like biometrics. Not all VPN support biometric MFA. You can offload to us. We will do the MFA using any third-party vendor you want. Only after we finish authenticating the user, now when the user tries to connect to a backend resource, they are routed through us. We connect them to the network, and only to that specific application. We elevate the user to an application level connectivity, disconnecting the tunnel between the user and the backend network. No more layer 2 tunneling between the user and the network. Everything is now elevated to application level access. So this prevents and reduces the chance of lateral movement. On top of this, we can mark backend applications as requiring extra MFA. Let's say some mainframe application or a specific file share. We can say that if a VPN user is going to a file share, which is sensitive, MFA the user. So this helps protecting the applications even more, right? Only if you do MFA can you connect to that application. And of course, you can choose who will need to accept that MFA. If it's a contractor, maybe you want the person inviting that contractor to approve the MFA. So again, utilizing this technology could have prevented the VPN related attack. The second product is what we call Zone Zero MFA. Zone Zero MFA is designed to support internal users and internal servers and add MFA for internal resources. One of the problems we're seeing today in networks, which is how attacks are able to jump between servers to servers and users to servers, is that we do not employ MFA within our network because we trust our users on the one hand, because it is very complicated to add MFA to existing infrastructure and legacy applications on the other hand. If you ever try to add MFA to SMB, to file shares, you know how complicated it is. If it's a mainframe, even more. If it's legacy or proprietary applications, even more. What we allow to do is sit between users and applications, or servers and servers, and centrally add MFA for users. If a user tries to go to a resource which is deemed as requiring MFA, let's say I am this user, trying to go to this file share, which is flagged in zone 0 as requiring MFA. We would intercept the traffic, issue an MFA, and only then connect the user to the file share. This allows preventing jumping from server to server. Attacks like SolarWinds, which utilize service accounts and stuff like this to jump between servers, would have invoked MFA, because we would either be sitting in between intercepting the traffic, or if it was a flat network, act as the proxy for authentication for all servers. So if anyone tries to hack an SSH server and then jump from that server to the finance application, the finance application would have came to us, please authenticate this user. We would issue an MFA, and at that point, break the attack. So the idea is to utilize our solutions to protect internal resources. We can also specifically protect file shares. You can take our solution and utilize it only as kind of a file share protection solution, especially for ransomware attacks, right? So any user going to a file share would require MFA. That would have prevented the widespread of a ransomware attack like in UCSF, because MFAs would have started jumping, and if you do not authenticate, you cannot connect. So by deploying safety solution, or specifically zone 0, we get a variety of benefits. From a security perspective, you get access control and access attack vector reduction, no lateral movement, reduced network attack surface by closing the firewall, preventing malware propagation using MFA on file shares. It's very simple to deploy. Because it's a centralized solution with no agents or no clients, put it in the network, connect it to the relevant components, and you're up and running. It's very cost effective. You know, we can address SMBs, enterprises, same solution, same UI, BYOD and BYOPC friendly, and you can run it however you want, on-prem, in the cloud. If you're fully AWS, run it in the AWS. You're in Azure, run it in Azure, on-prem, hybrid, etc. So let's see, now that we kind of briefly covered safety solutions, let's see how they could have helped against attacks. And going back to the 3 attacks of the Pulse Secure, UCSF, and SolarWinds. So in case of the Pulse Secure, we would have recommended this customer to deploy zone 0 after their VPN, applying the MFA as a second line of defense. That would have caused a hacker hacking into the Pulse Secure and trying to bypass the MFA or jump from it to the internal network to be addressed with an MFA. Now think about adding biometric MFA, right? So even if the user knows the user credentials, the biometric would have blocked that hacker from attacking because they did not have the MFA credentials. And again, zone 0 allows you to do any MFA you want, regardless of the VPN vendor. So we would not have prevented the actual hack of the Pulse Secure, but we would have prevented jumping from the Pulse Secure VPN into the network. A second use case, the UCSF ransomware. In this case, we could have used zone 0 secure file access or the internal MFA to protect specifically the file share. In this case, we would have sat between the users and servers and the file share, and any approach to a file share would have invoked MFA, something you do not have today built into file shares. That MFA would have prevented the propagation of the attack, because the service account potentially used to reach the file share would have invoked MFA. Someone would have addressed it, and if no one would have accepted the MFA, or someone would have seen that there's an MFA here which is strange, that would have prevented the ransom from propagating. And last but not least, the SolarWinds hack. Again, here we would not have prevented the hack of the SolarWinds Orion platform. That's up to the third-party vendor. But once that is hacked, and from that point, from SolarWinds Orion, someone would have tried to jump using service accounts or user accounts to internal resources, again, we would have invoked MFA. And that would have raised a red flag to IT that there's a lot of traffic going on, a lot of MFA suddenly jumping, something is happening, right? And of course, if no one would have addressed the MFA, that would have prevented the attack propagation. So this summarizes the slide deck. Let me show you a demo to see how one of these attacks would have been prevented. 1 second. Okay, so what we see here is a sample user desktop. In this movie, we have a VPN client at the bottom, what we call zones, in this case, Sophos VPN, Telegram, which we utilize as an MFA bot, and 3 applications allowed to the user: a file share, a web portal, and a remote desktop application. Now we start by the user authenticating to the VPN. Now in regular user world, once you finish authenticating to the VPN, you're now able to connect to the network. However, because Zone 0 is sitting after the VPN, I do not have access to my corporate resource as long as I do not respond to the MFA. So you can see here, the MFA jumped in Telegram, please respond. If I disregard the MFA and try to go to any of my backend resources, I am prevented access. The file share does not work, the web application does not work, the remote desktop does not work. Only if I confirm the MFA, and again, think about this being a hacker, bypassing the initial authentication phase and trying to jump into the network. They cannot because they are not addressing the MFA. Now, only if I address the MFA does Zone 0 open and allow access. And access is only allowed to these 3 applications. I can only connect to my file share, my web application, and my remote desktop application. No more. No network access, no lateral movement. Only 3 applications. Now imagine this user is already connected to the network, to the VPN, or is a network user trying to go to a sensitive application like this RDP 111 that invokes MFA. And this is how we would have addressed attacks like SolarWinds or the UCS attack, because an approach to a resource in the network requires MFA. As long as you do not address the MFA, you cannot connect. And that would have prevented the attack from spreading. All of these MFAs would have reached IT or a user, and that would have raised a flag. And again, this could be a remote desktop, could be a file share. Imagine this is a service user trying to go to a file share to encrypt it, MFA, all without touching the applications, completely central with no agents, nothing required. So the idea again is to take, if I go back to my presentation, the idea again is to take, is to sit between any type user and corporate data and secure it. And not only secure it, but also break the attack's access vector. And that summarizes my presentation. I want to thank you very much for joining, and we will now open it up for questions.
Thanks, Eitan. Very interesting presentation. A couple of questions that have come in. Is the user's data exposed?
So we, as a concept, do not store any user information. We utilize the identity provider of the organization. We only store group names in order to map a user's group and the applications he or she are allowed to access. We do not store users. We do not store phone numbers. Everything is based on the identity provider or MFA provider.
So for clarity, you're sitting on top of existing infrastructure. There's no need to rip and replace. You're not requiring other assets to be removed to be replaced by Zone Zero. Yeah,
correct.
Where are our secrets kept? Secrets is defined as passwords, tokens, private keys. You kind of answered this in your last.
They are kept in the same identity provider you use today.
Okay, next up, how is the risk of internal threats mitigated, which you did go into, I think maybe just a little bit of clarity. So we take the concept of a ransomware attack. How do you find patient zero and stop patient zero bringing down the rest of the network, I guess? Let's use that as the scenario.
Yeah, so the idea here is to prevent internal attacks by preventing a hacker from connecting to an internal resource by adding MFA centrally, right? So we do not prevent, we're not an endpoint solution. So if someone hacks a laptop or desktop, we cannot prevent that. But we will help in preventing jumping from that resource, from that endpoint to a corporate resource by requiring MFA. And the assumption is if someone hacked a laptop and trying to go to an internal resource, the MFA would have prevented that jump.
So you're isolating the exposure just to the specific permissions of that user rather than just an everybody gets access to everything model, which is a little bit more commonplace.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Well, there's no other questions. So almost bang on time. Eitan, thank you very much for your time. Thank you to everybody
My pleasure.
who attended. We look forward to doing future sessions with you. We're excited about this product and excited about the partnership. And we will end the session now and get the recording out to everyone no later than tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.